Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's your host, Street Urchin. I don't get a lot of sleep these days. You know, looking back on all my videos, it almost seems as if I'm making a survival guide for navigating the Facebook groups.
Take this. It could save your life.
And as an ENTP, I have a disdain for dealing in common things. I prefer unique, novel, strange, and weird. But it occurred to me, the most commonly found personality type on the Facebook groups, and I imagine a great number of YouTube videos, is the INFP. They're just everywhere. And that can be understandable. With their combination of function preferences, they may wander through life wondering who they even are. They can easily emulate those around them, fit into most social groups, and is probably the single most mistyped personality. We'll talk about their functions, pros and cons, you know, the usual shtick, with the added tidbits of helping you identify those INFPs on those Facebook groups. They walk among us. They strike without warning. We believe the first was Edgar Allan Poe. They feed off your feelings.
I'm so lonely.
They unironically make a living writing sad poetry. They dress for Halloween as Twilight vampires and shit. And this fall, don't wear your heart on your sleeve.
You need a stake made of the concept that unicorns are dead.
INFP, the saddening. Introverted feeling. I have a hard time imagining what my life would be like if I was completely led around by how I felt. So, introverted feeling, as I have discussed at some length, is about the person's personal feelings. And that governs a few things. Morals, values, principles, code of ethics. This is about as far from cold logic as you can get. For the INFP, the introverted feeling is like their North Star. They always need to be in line with it. They wheel and deal in everything emotional. INFPs and ISFPs are like 90% of the Lifetime channel viewership. Joy is their cocaine, and sorrow is their heroin. And although that's the opposite of me, I find it rather endearing. They have this childlike innocence that I lost some time ago. However, it's nonetheless frustrating when you're trying to explain something in a logical manner. So when the INFP disagrees with you, what they really mean to say is, I don't like that. And I believe that because introverted feeling is their lead function, they are the biggest offenders of mistyping themselves. One day they're INFP, the next day they're an INTJ. I had one claim to be an ENTP once, and I am positive that 100% of INFPs at some point type themselves as INFJ. It's hard to stop to take an objective view of your entire life and general behavior when you're absolutely swimming in the feeling that your new barista hates you because they didn't give you extra whip. Next up is the extroverted intuition, something we can agree on. Take the idea of always being led by feelings and then throw that shit into the multiverse. Extroverted intuition for the INFP is like a gateway into the minds and hearts of other people. This is the combination I actually find fascinating. Some of the greatest actors of all time were absolutely INFP. Given enough time, an INFP can mimic anybody. You know those articles and blog posts about how an INFJ is a master empath? And how they can just feel the people around them. That's actually where it comes from. Long story short, INFP types as INFJ. INFP goes to write stuff about being an INFJ. Other people read it and decide that they are in fact INFJ. That's incorrect. The INFP is actually the master empath. Transcendent levels of empathy. The second only to the ENFP. They just retain a little bit more of their own personality. And no, my ENFP brother sucks ass and I can't get him to, come on to do an interview. It's hard to catch an INFP not wondering about how they might feel in random scenarios. They ask a lot of what-if questions. What if my dog died? What if I married John Cena? What if that stripper I gave $500 to doesn't actually like me? That is a real story. Tell it later. Now we're moving on to the third function, introverted sensing. This is the function that actually makes an INFP dangerous. Now, as I've explained a million times, introverted sensing is about memory and traditional things. This allows the INFP to catalog your behavior behavior. It also causes them to dwell on nightmares. So with introverted sensing, combined with the first two functions, they are these expert emotional manipulators. And I imagine if you're not familiar with your own emotions, you're like a prime target. They'll pick the lock to your heart and then eat it.
I am going to eat your soul.
And then on to the last function, extroverted thinking. They're most likely to believe the logic, of course, of other people, those that they feel are correct anyhow. But the lack of preference is so great, they'll most likely defer to how life has been for them, or play to their strengths and simply ask you why you're so angry. Not much else to say, really. They just don't deal with it. Alright, so let's review. INFPs are the premier empath personality. Expert emotional manipulators. They spurn logic and replace it with rainbows and kittens. However, if an INFP isn't careful, they can have their own emotions manipulated. And I find that to be a little bit cute. I like to poke and prod, you know. I enjoy a little deconstruction here and there. And they're always like, oh, you're a monster. Alright, so that's a brief overview of the INFP personality. It's the personality type you're most likely to come across in the Facebook groups. And of course, I've got more content on the way when I get around to it. I just don't get enough sleep. I like to think that she is an INFP. Possibly an ISFJ, they scowl a lot.